Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our November edition of the Citizens Academy for this month as we wind up the year 2021 in these Citizens Academies. Thank you so much for everybody who has participated with us live or participated by watching after the fact with our YouTube channel. We appreciate that. This month, we are talking about form-based code in Uptown, Canandaigua, and happy to have our town planner with us today. It's Uptown and form-based code is something so exciting. I know we were going to talk about this last month. We had to cancel last month's session because we were actually doing what's called a downtown revitalization initiative presentation to the Regional Economic Development Council, and we're hoping for very good news that impacts Uptown, downtown, and the lakefront. And but with that said, Sean, I think I set it up so you can do screen sharing there and everything
Okay,
too.
let me grab that.
But we're super excited to talk to you today about Uptown Canandaigua and form-based code. And Shawna, I guess maybe let's kind of start real basic. A lot of people say to me, what is form-based code? How would you describe that?
Well, thank you for having me, Doug. I would describe form-based code as a very flexible way for development to happen. It's a way for communities to promote walkability, which is really, I think, the key and the center point for a form-based code. Um, Also, the function of a building becomes very important, and the aesthetic of a building becomes very important as well.
So you said I heard flexibility as you were
Mhm.
describing, and I heard the
Yeah,
words aesthetics. So
absolutely.
like let's talk about that a little bit more. So
Okay.
is it that all the buildings are going to be identical?
Absolutely not. So if you were to go to let's just say a typical suburban shopping center, right, where it's a flat face, really nothing to look at other than the storefronts. It's not inviting. It really just serves the purpose of what you're going inside to get. With the aesthetics of form-based code, the buildings are not basically allowed to look alike. They have a really pleasing look to them, lots of different facade features, step backs, which is really basically where it's not a flat face, and character. That's probably what I would say, is that buildings have character. They're welcoming. You want to go there. You want to walk around. You want it. It's more of a destination, really, I would say.
So this destination and this flexibility, Shauna, this can happen anywhere in the town of Canandaigua?
This cannot happen anywhere in the town. This is an area that we we're focusing on Uptown Canandaigua. If you look at the screen, and sometimes it's hard for people to when I say North Road or 332 and Campus Drive, it's better for me to give like tops, right? So
Right, we all know where
north of
Tops is, right, on
yeah, we
332.
all know where Tops is. We all know where Tom Walls is. We all know where the Honda dealership is, right?
Mhm.
So we know where Randy Farnsworth is, and so geographically, that captured it. We know where Eric's office is, and we know where the southern boundary is, basically where Tim Hortons is. So it's not the entirety of Canandaigua. It's a concentrated, very focused area that we have outlined, and you can see it here on this map.
So the map I see on the screen here, you mentioned Tops, you mentioned Tom Walls, you mentioned the Honda and the GMC dealership. Those areas are all in the red. Those parcels are in the red area that I see is labeled Form-Based Code State Route 332 and sub area. Now you also mentioned
Absolutely.
Eric's office, which looks to me like it's in the orangish color. Can you talk a little bit about, does that mean it's all in form-based code? Just what's the difference there?
Right. So we have rezoned specific parcels, and they are all in kind of under the umbrella of form-based code. Some of them, basically all of the parcels that align 332 directly front them, are what we call State Route 332 sub area. So there's a little bit different visual of what we want to see along 332 versus some of the parcels in the back, mixed use sub areas. But they're all governed under this form-based code, which again is really function of a building and aesthetics of a building, and really developer friendly in a sense. Would you agree with me, Doug?
I do. I know. I was just getting ready to say I'm asking you a ton of questions. This whole project, Uptown, really kind of kicked off in 2017. I know I've heard some comments like, "Oh, this is like overnight and this is happening," but
Mhm.
this really kind of started in 2017 when we realized that this area had a lot of potential for growth and it was starting to grow. We had new townhomes, new apartments, and a variety of different things starting to come in. And we made an application to the Genesee Finger Lakes Planning Council, Genesee Transportation Council, for what's called a Uniform Planning Work Project Grant. A UPWP grant is what they're called. And we were successful in receiving that grant award. And what we were able to then do basically for all of 2017, all of 2018, is we held many, many meetings, citizen engagement sessions, 2017, 2018, 2019, getting the input from the public of what Uptown would look like or what it should look like. What would be a vision that everybody would like to see for Uptown Canandaigua? And that study, when that was completed, is called the Uptown Feasibility Study, and it was adopted by the town board. I want to say in 2019, I believe. Shawna, correct me if I'm wrong if you know, but I think that was 2019 that was adopted. And then from there, um, the next step of that was actually okay, so we have this vision, we have this idea of what we would like to see. How do you get there, right? Because the absence of a plan, I say this all the time, the absence of a plan is car dealerships on 332, and then we look like West Henrietta Road, which everybody has said we don't want to look like. So we come up with this plan, this feasibility study on what we would like to see there. And then how do you make that happen? What's the nuts and bolts to make that happen? And then that's where the actual code changes, the form-based code changes come in to actually get us to that design. So Shauna, how does it morph? How does it change? What does it look like? What's it look like? Today's 2021. What does Uptown look like in 2050? Give me some
2050.
ideas on what it is, what's different about form-based code. What are we looking at?
Right. So I pulled up some of the site standards, which is a really helpful graphic to kind of just to show you what we mean and what's different. And I did speak a little bit about traditional development. The West Henrietta, the Target, the Lowe's, where everything is boxy and pushed back, and you have parking for Black Friday, and it's maxed out, and that's all you see is a sea of asphalt. So in 2050, we're hoping it will look much different, and that if you look at this graphic, we want buildings pulled up. We want them pulled up to the road. We want we want sidewalks. We want accessibility, shared parking, for bikes, pedestrians. If you look here, it's and I keep saying pedestrian friendly, but it's really, it's walkable. There's public spaces to sit, to eat, to easily get back to Blue Heron Park, which is a really special park for us. And the town, we've talked about it before, but the town has done some really nice improvements to it. So here's just a graphic, like I said, of what it means to have a form-based code. It looks a little different than what we're used to. In terms of, the technical term is called Euclidean zoning, which is really just zoning based on a use. So let me get into that too. Uses are flexible. We are not saying that you can't have residential and commercial. We're encouraging that together. That's where you work and where you live. Really encouraging that dynamic is important, and people enjoy that. What else should we talk about? There's so many.
There's a lot of,
So
certainly a lot
much.
of different points to it. Okay, so I heard you specifically say moving buildings up closer to the road. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yep.
realistically, right now, when I get off the thruway and I drive south into Canandaigua, coming down
Mhm.
332, and I get
Yep.
to, again, these same reference points that you referenced, Campus Drive, where Acustos is, then the GMC dealership, where the Honda dealership. When I get there, currently what I see is a 4-lane highway, 2 lanes in each side, that is really designed for automobile traffic, moving automobiles as quickly as basically possible, even though the speed limit is 40 through that, but getting people from point A to point B, right? And
Right.
predominantly it's car dealer alley, right? You've got car
Absolutely.
dealerships predominantly on both sides. You've got some other businesses. So now I hear you saying, okay, bring buildings up closer to the road. So help me understand, if I'm not familiar with form-based code or this is all new to me, how
Mhm.
that happens. Or do we tell the car dealership they have to move their building closer to the road? How does that work?
So what we're doing, and it almost it's a calming mechanism too, where you have your buildings closer. You are creating that aesthetic, you're creating that destination, right? There are places to cross on 332 that we know are there, but traffic does go quickly. So no, we're saying to Randy Farnsworth, hey, let's take your parking lot out in the front and put a building there. We're not going to make you move what you have, because we do have a lot of obviously pre-existing businesses there that we're going to be working with, but there's space here to to put a building up front. There's space to put buildings in front of the strip mall there. And then, so you keep what we have, put a new building in front, create a pedestrian corridor down the middle, move parking behind. So
So
there's a lot of opportunity.
So, okay, we moved the buildings up closer, the parking, I
Yep,
heard you say like behind, those types of things. I see here on the
yep,
screen, landscaping, lighting standards, outdoor sidewalk dining, all those types of things. Okay.
right.
So let's say by that year 2050 that some of these buildings have started building out closer to the road. Are
Hmm.
these like a fast food restaurant right next to the road, or do these have like certain, I heard you say aesthetic earlier, are there certain aesthetic, is there a certain look that we're going for in this area? What am I going to experience when I drive through Uptown Canandaigua kind of during this time period of 2050?
So here's a great graphic. It's shady, but there isn't a better one in this. Yeah, you're going to experience a destination. You're going to experience a community. So we are really focusing our residential development into this area. So the population wise, there's going to be quite a few more people living up in this area.
So
And
Shawna, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yes. And also, again, I wanted to kind of reiterate the importance of mixed use here. The importance of, like, if you look at these buildings, there could be commercial on the bottom and apartments above. There could be, as you say, sometimes there could be mini storage in the bottom and an office at the top. Height wise, they can go up. But again, and I wish there was a better word, but maybe beautification, they will look better. They will look nicer. There's transparency, which means, hey, you can see through the building. It's not a sea of concrete. That's very important for placemaking. It's very important for people to feel safe and welcome. And that transparency in buildings really does that.
So I see this is actually a great graphic. I see that the it's faded a little bit, but this is actually, I believe,
Yeah, I like this one.
directly from the Uptown form-based code section where it talks about the zoning changes. But in this map, there's a couple of things. Let's just look at this graphic here for a quick second. So the first thing that I notice is the roadways, 11-foot travel lanes. So let's just touch on that for a second. So this particular image has a car going in each direction. I believe that this graphic was actually illustrative of Fire Hall Road. This wouldn't be 332, I believe. But and obviously with 332, it'd be in 4 lanes. But I see 11-foot
Right.
travel lanes. So one of the things that we know from professional and Shawna and I both do a lot of planning and work with state organizations and even national organizations. But one of the things that we know that works is slowing vehicles down a little bit, traffic calming, as Shawna said earlier. There are certain design elements that you can include that help to have that effect and slow people down. And I'm not talking about speed humps, and I'm not talking about police
Right.
officers every 50 feet. Things like reducing the travel lane width from 12 feet or 13 feet down to 11 feet makes you concentrate a little bit more to stay between the lines. I see there's
Absolutely.
also a 2-foot buffer on this graphic, and then a 5-foot bike lane, and then a 5-foot sidewalk. So those types of things. So right away, we've incorporated into this design multimodal transportation is what I would call it, whether it's you're
Absolutely.
using a car, whether you're using a bicycle in that 5-foot bike lane all along this road, or whether you're walking on the sidewalk, or whether you're using a scooter or a shared scooter, like you see those Lime scooters or bike shares or any of those types of things, we've automatically incorporated into the design of this concept multiple modes of transportation. I see a couple of other things on there, but Sean, is there anything that you could add to that? Is that kind of that design? We don't necessarily envision that, I guess, all over the town of Canandaigua, but I believe we do for Uptown specifically, right?
Absolutely. And the multimodal is key because you're right. It absolutely does slow. It forces you to slow down and be aware of bikers and walkers and it also it really promotes the mixed use because you do have people who are living here and working here. So I think we are creating an uptown destination, which is really what we want to see here.
You know, one of the things that always intrigues me about the town of Canandaigua is 62 square miles. The city of Canandaigua is 4 square miles. I mean, the town of Canandaigua is so much geographically larger. But with that comes some unique challenges, and sometimes we have growing pains because in parts of the town, we are a very rural community where we're focused on agriculture, where we're focused on woodland protection, natural resource protection. Obviously, we have Canandaigua Lake. Then we have an industrial corridor, we have a commercial corridor, we have shopping plazas. Then we have this uptown thing, right? So
Right.
one of the things that I know that I have heard is people that have shared concerns about this spreading to other portions of the town. Like for instance, and I don't think anybody has used Seneca Point Road as an example, but I'll use it as an example. Seneca Point Road is a very rural road. And so Shauna, I'm looking at 11-foot travel lanes, 2-foot buffer, a 5-foot bike lane, a 5-foot sidewalk. Are we talking about that for Seneca Point Road?
Absolutely not. I mean, that road is already rural in itself. There is nothing that we could do there. And that our focus is exactly that in that area, natural resource protection. There's steep slopes and it's a whole another microclimate area in that part of town. And that's absolutely the beauty of Canandaigua, is that we have all of these different elements, and we're very, very aware of what needs to be preserved and where we need to focus growth.
So you're talking about increased density. I heard you said more
Yes.
residential. I'm looking at this graphic that we're showing here, and it's showing it looks like either a 2 or 3 store building. I'm seeing storefronts, I'm seeing awnings, I'm seeing windows that I would assume are either offices or residential. I see some breaks in the building, some trees. Looks like, again, I see awnings hanging out. You
Mhm.
mentioned that you used the word aesthetic earlier, and then I see landscaping there. Let's just touch on that for a minute on those design elements. And I guess one of the things is, okay, if I'm a business in downtown Canandaigua, should I be worried that Uptown is going to be competing, or this form-based code is competing with downtown? What would you say with that?
I would say absolutely not. That, this is a community wide, and, there's no, you know, elements of city versus town. This meshes really well with the city aesthetic, the Main Street look. I mean, we do talk about that a lot. That look is classic and timeless, and what people love about the city of Canandaigua, and we appreciate that as well. So really, this is creating a gateway into the city of Canandaigua, an absolute beautiful, segue into the city, into our lake, everyone's lake. It's just nothing but beneficial, I think, for the city.
In 2017, we actually did what we called a concept mapping exercise, where we actually surveyed the residents and the business owners in both the city and town, and we talked about Canandaigua as a community instead of looking specifically at the municipal borders. And there
Mhm.
were a variety of things that rose to the level of importance when we did that. Number one, by far and away, everybody, I mean, it was essentially unanimous agreement, protection of Canandaigua Lake. Everybody, that is the heart and soul of the Canandaigua community, is Canandaigua Lake. Whether you live on Westlake Road, whether you live in Ononda, down near Ononda, whether you live in Uptown, whether you live in the city itself, or wherever, the lake is the heart of our community. But then we
Mhm.
started to talk about a variety of other initiatives or opportunities for us to collaborate as a community, and what we want the community to look like. And these types of things all rose to the highest levels, a shared economic development effort. And we launched and created our local development corporation, our LDC. You mentioned placemaking, and placemaking, I 100% agree with you. Placemaking and tying together uptown to downtown to the lakefront, and the connection of uptown to the downtown to the lakefront, and how, as you're a visitor and you're coming into our community, what a special and unique place that is when you get to Uptown. That truthfully, and no offense to our car dealer friends, but that you're not just seeing West Henrietta Road that's dumping into the city of Canandaigua, that there's a transition there, where you
Absolutely.
where you're entering into a community where there is a sense of placemaking and similar design elements, whether it's the building, whether it's the landscaping, whether it's the banners, whether it's the flowers in the median of the roadway and coming into the Canandaigua community, and then having that similar feel all the way down to the lake, and welcoming our guests and our visitors and our residents back home into Canandaigua through downtown and to the lakefront. So there's a lot of these different pieces. Okay, so Shawna, the other thing I have to ask, and I know I've got asked the question many times, is you're building all this residential development in this mixture of uses there. Can our infrastructure and our roads handle it? And where are all these people going to come from? Aren't there going to be empty buildings? Isn't there empty buildings already all over the community? And won't this just push out more farmland? And won't this be a negative on the community?
Um, those are, I guess, yes, genuine concerns that I know you hear, and I've heard them as well. And I mean, again, the beauty is that we've already looked at the infrastructure here, and we know that it is ready, and ready for growth. So that's not going to be a problem. We need housing. We need workforce housing. We need apartments. As you have said recently, all of our apartment buildings have wait lists that are, Creekview has over 100. There are not a lot of places for people to move to. And with that, we need flex space. We need, and that's what is a plan for the mixed use overlay area. We need this. People want to come to Canandaigua. And again, we're protecting our farmland. Again, I mean, that's something you didn't mention, but the northwest part of town, we have, multiple parcels that are protected, and we're cognizant of that, very aware of our ag and how important it is. But this area has been studied, it is primed, it's ready for development. And, as you know, we're pretty excited.
It certainly has a lot of interest. There's a lot of landowners. I know I'm talking to many of the landowners in this area, and they're trying to, this is new for all of us,
Mhm.
the form-based code, and everybody's trying to understand, okay, what is it that we can do? And a big portion, and I know I've talked with many residents that live on what I would say the north end of town is kind of the way I usually refer to it. You're from Tops on 332, and if you were to draw kind of a line parallel across the town, all the way up to Farmington, and that's the portion of the town that I live in also, and many residents live in that area. Nearly half of the residents who responded to the recent 2020 census live north of 5 and 20. Almost half of the residents of the town of Canandaigua live north of 5 and 20 in the recent census information. But one of the things that I have always heard from residents for the last 10, 15 years, even before I was with the town of Canandaigua for this area in particular, is the town put in access roads and everything. I think it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and nothing has ever really developed. And I believe, my personal opinion is, one of the reasons that's been holding this area back is actually the zoning. The zoning was piecemeal, very restrictive. You had areas that were zoned restrictive business one mixed in with areas that were zoned multifamily residential mixed in with R120, R130. It was just a complete hodgepodge. And so this really creates, we created the vision, and then the form-based code is really it's the code change to enact and facilitate that vision. And this really allows for this concept to come to fruition in time. But I know I was asked recently, and you and I did a presentation, and the question came up, well, what if a landowner doesn't want to do this? And are they grandfathered in type thing? You want to touch on that?
Yeah, they absolutely. I mean, we have provisions in there for, you know, for our businesses that are existing. We're not pushing anybody out. I mean, there are some parameters in terms of how much renovation you're doing, versus, that will trigger the form-based code and trigger the changes. But we absolutely, value our current business owners and are, definitely not wanting to push them out. And honestly, I would say that most of them are excited about this.
Yeah,
I
I
would
would
think that, I mean, everything you hear is that they are on board.
for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
What else haven't I asked you that we should know about form-based code?
You've asked me a lot. I don't know. I was just looking at our checklist just to see if there was anything that I forgot to mention that's important. I do want to, I will say to people who are watching, if you see there's some construction going on right south of Tom Walls. So that is our first project that is coming through the form-based code. So just
Can we
keep
talk about
watching
what it
that.
is? Are we allowed to
Yeah,
talk about what it is?
it's fantastic. 6,000 square foot footprint of it's a commercial building with some retail and then an open air second floor restaurant. There's going to be pedestrian or seating outside for the public, and the design is fantastic. Um, Lots of glass, a lot of natural elements that we wanted to see: wood, glass, steel. It's going to look great. So keep your eye open for. And he's a new developer. He's from Massachusetts that moved to New York and loves the community and wants to do more. So we're excited about it.
You know, one of the things I think it's awesome and it's interesting to have somebody new coming into the community and working with us and developing. But I want to just share with our listeners today, there are so many landowners that they or their families have owned the land 100+ years in Uptown, or people that have come to Canandaigua even in the mid 90s that purchased property that have been in Canandaigua for 20 and 30 years now, that they've purchased the land in Uptown. They care very much about the community. Some of the landowners in Uptown are very prominent, what I would call community uh, fathers, community mothers that very willingly give of themselves and their financial resources to better our community. And they are very much some of the same people that are involved with us that are helping to shape Uptown. They own a lot of this land in Uptown, and they're wanting to see a product that comes to the market that is complementary to downtown in the Canandaigua community, that is not something that is going to um, be a mega commercial center or something like that. It's something more of a transition area as you come into the downtown Canandaigua area. And again, the name Uptown, the businesses came up with that name even before the town started referring to it as Uptown. You know, Uptown was born by the owners and the businesses in that portion of the town of Canandaigua. They started referring to themselves as Uptown many, many years ago. And then this Uptown, downtown, lakefront transition piece, you know, that really has started to take shape over this last time period. But these business owners and these landowners that we're talking about, I mean, many of them are just, you know, tremendously involved in the community. I also put a plug in for that. We do have a website that is a lot of times I think people forget about. I'll just share it, my screen here with you just a quick second. This is uptowncanandaigua.com. This has a lot more information about the original feasibility study that we did. Obviously, our town website has a ton of information on that in terms of information about Uptown. You can go to the projects tab here. There's information about that Uptown study. There's information about the form-based code. You can actually see all the study documents. You can see the survey results. Here's the timeline. It really started 2016, 2017, in through 2018 before it was adopted in March of 2019, that Uptown feasibility study. And then you get into the form-based code, the map that Shawna showed you a little bit earlier with some of the design details and everything. Here's another picture of one of those buildings. But that information is all actually on our website, or on the website uptowncanandaigua.com has a lot of that information. So, Shawna, great to have you with us and go through
Thank you,
some of this. I
Doug.
know that there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of people wondering what it's going to be and what it means, and a lot of uncertainty, just not really understanding it because it's so new. But thanks for taking the time to go through this here today. And I'm sure that if anybody would like to reach out to you, you'd be happy to chat with them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love that.
All right, Shawna. Well, thank you
All
so
right,
much for
thank
taking the
you.
time today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again for the November Academy, Citizens of Academy. Hope this has been informational for you in terms of Uptown, Canandaigua, and specifically the form-based code and where you can find some of that information. Hope all's well. Take care. Bye. Thanks, Shawna.